Hi guys, welcome back to another case of Econ struggles. Welcome to another macro struggle. Today we are going to be talking about shifts in the ISLM curves. So we are going to quickly review the derivation we did last time of the ISLM model. Then we're going to talk about two specific shifts and how they affect the graphs of the ISLM model. First, we'll talk about a permanent increase in the marginal product of labor. Then we will talk about a permanent decrease in government spending. And finally, we will talk about pro-cyclical versus counter-cyclical real interest rate in the ISLM model. So timestamps are below if you would like to jump around, but let's go ahead and quickly review our derivation of the ISLM model. Now, the ISLM model, like we've said, has three markets. It's got the labor market, the goods market, and the asset market. Each of these three markets will be in equilibrium in the ISLM model. So from the labor market, we get this nice vertical full employment line. From the goods market, we get this IS curve in orange. And from the asset market, we get the LM curve, all seen here on this graph, where we have our equilibrium or the natural rate of output and the natural rate of interest or the equilibrium real interest rate. Now we are going to start talking about shifting the graph. As we talk about shifting the graph, we're going to talk about it in relation to each of the three markets, so that it's more clear why each of these IS or LM or FE lines are shifting in the overall ISLM graph. So let's start with the permanent increase in the marginal product of labor. Well, we know that labor demand is equal to the marginal product of labor. So now that that has changed, the labor demand curve is going to shift up. So I'll draw that in orange. And we also know that if Bill is living in this world and he sees his own wage go up, his labor demand goes up, that means that he is going to want to work more. So he is going to go along this labor supply curve to this new point where he's at a higher wage. And notice that total employment, because there are a bunch of bills in this economy, has also gone up. Because the total employment has gone up, the full employment line in our ISLM curve will also go up. So here is our maybe new full employment line. I'll call it FE1. Now, notice that we have more income now. Bill is working more for a higher wage. So that means he has more income, which means he's having more consumption and more savings, which means that what is going to happen is our IS curve is going to shift out because our savings are going to go up. So maybe in our goods market, here comes this new savings curve. The result of this is going to be that actually this IS curve is going to shift out. Going to shift out something like this. So here's our new IS curve because again, consumption has gone up. And we know that if consumption has gone up, our overall GDP or our Y must have gone up, which means that we are just moving along the LM curve to this new point. Maybe I'll put it in green instead of pink to make it more clear. So we have gone from the red point to this green point, which means that our real interest rate has increased and our equilibrium output has also increased. So this is the effect of an increase in marginal product of labor on the ISLM curve. Now let's do our second shift, which is a decrease in government spending. So if we have a decrease in government spending, we are not affecting the labor market. We are affecting the goods market because we have increased savings. So savings has gone up like this. And we have not affected the asset market. So all we're doing is shifting the IS curve down. So our new IS curve is going to look something like this. Notice that our full employment line hasn't shifted and our LM curve hasn't shifted. What this means is we are not currently in an equilibrium. We're currently out of equilibrium because we are away from the full employment line. So over time, what is going to happen is investment will kick up. So we'll have more and more investment, and this IS curve will begin shifting back to the original IS curve. So it's just going to do something like this all the way until it gets back to the original IS curve, and we are back in equilibrium. So this is a little tricky because we've sort of shifted the ISLM model, but we haven't really permanently shifted. It's a temporary shift that will go back over time. So here I have just done two shifts. With the IS curve, we haven't touched the LM curve. Comment below if you would like to see that in a future video. Otherwise, we will keep going to our discussion of pro-cyclical versus counter-cyclical real interest rate. So now let's go over pro-cyclical versus counter-cyclical And all cyclical means is how does a variable change when output changes or when y changes? So if we are pro-cyclical, that means that the interest rate increases when output increases or decreases when output decreases. To be counter-cyclical means the opposite. So if output goes down, real interest rate goes up. And if output goes up, the real interest rate goes down. And I'm going to represent to you that when the IS curve shifts in the ISLM, we have a pro-cyclical real interest rate. And when the LM curve is shifting, we have a counter-cyclical real interest rate. So let's take our ISLM model and see how that works. So if I shift the ISLM model like we did in that first shift, we have something like this. Let's get rid of the full employment line for now and just assume that it moves like it needs to. So see here, we have gotten to a point where our output has definitely gone up and our real interest rate has also gone up. So we have pro-cyclical real interest rate. Now, if I do the opposite, if I shift the LM curve, something like this, where now I am making the output go up, but notice that my interest rate has gone down, even though my Y has gone up. So hopefully this gives you a little better idea of how shifts in the ISLM model work and what it means to be pro-cyclical or counter-cyclical. If it did, make sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you next time for another case of Econ Struggles.